Welcome to episode 120 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Stephen Campolo. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Join here once again, too many episodes ago. Stephen Campolo, what's up, baby? Welcome back.
Oh, dude, it's been a while, man. It's good to be back.
Been a while. I think I looked at it before. The first episode that we did was episode 24. What a time ago, man.
Come a long way, baby. A long way.
For sure. So if anyone wants more of Stephen's backstory, we talked a lot about that, and that's going to intertwine a lot of what we're going to talk about today. But just for more of the context of like really the deeper story of where you're coming from, go back to listen to that one, episode 24. Since then, the 77 Laws of Six Pack Abs book has come out. That one absolutely crushed on Amazon. So congratulations on that. You got married, but things seem to be going well, man.
Yes, man. A lot of life changes. But thank God. Things are going good, man. Grinding every day, doing what I can, and taking life one day at a time, man. It's all we could do, not looking too far ahead, but, just kind of taking what's in front of us and being diligent, staying consistent, and just putting in the work every day. So, yeah, man, thank God life is good.
That's all there is. That's all there is to it, man. And I mean, things have not always been rock solid either for you. Like even just over the past year, you had the shoulder surgery, which that was something that you've been dealing with for a long time, but then coming back from that, then even like your wedding, a freaking hurricane destroyed Southwest Florida. And so they're then dealing with that. Like things have not always been like smooth sailing, but like, you just put one foot in front of the other and you keep going. Has it been challenging to kind of go through all those ups and downs?
Yeah. And I haven't even told you this. I actually have surgery this upcoming Friday for my shoulder again.
Oh, man.
So the other surgery didn't really do what it was supposed to. So the last 2 years I've kind of been just like, dealing with it, and to the point where I'm like, all right, I can't even bench press right now. I can't do any overhead press. I'm like, I got to get this fixed. I'm only 34. So it's not like I'm an old man where I can get a shoulder replacement. So they're going to go in, clean some stuff up. I have some like loose bone fragments in there they got to suck out apparently. So, but we'll get that taken care of. But listen, that's life, man. Life happens to us all, right? Like this is what I tell people, especially like when it comes to being on a fitness journey. There are no perfect conditions, right? I don't care if you fly to an island somewhere and just cut out all the processed junk and, like even those people that go on the Biggest Loser show and just eliminate like everything in their life, like there's always something that's going to pop up in life, right? So if you understand that and just accept it and realize it, like you're going to be way ahead of the game. And just realizing life ain't perfect, man. Like you just got to take things as they come and just plan as best as you can. So,
Yeah, I mean, you can be perfect for short periods of time, right? And for a month, for 6 weeks, like follow this really strict plan and really dial in. You know that nothing's coming up with work. You have no like big social events. Like you can do that. But over the course of your whole life, like it is utterly impossible. And hoping for that is almost silly in a way that it's just not going to happen. So you've got to be prepared to sort of like roll with the punches, right?
Yeah.
Are there any strategies that you used maybe differently this past year and a half or 2 years that were different than things that you've done in the past that you think would maybe be helpful for people? Was it just a mindset shift, or was it just like you've been through this so many times and this was just another one?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I've been involved in fitness now for like 20 years, right? I started when I was about like 14, 15 years old. I'm 34 now. So, do the math. That's like 19, 20-ish years, right? For those that don't know my story, I'll just kind of, catch you up to speed real quick. But like I was 100 pounds overweight when I was younger, right? So super obese, like morbidly obese. My health was like, really, really poor when I was younger. I went through this transformation when I was like, between 15 and 17 years old. Had no idea what I was doing, but I wanted to lose the weight. So I started running, started restricting myself, eating chicken and broccoli. And that's kind of how like my negative relationship with food really began, because I was, restricting myself from all the good foods and, binging on the weekends. And then, got into like weightlifting and training and bodybuilding when I was 16, 17, hired my first bodybuilding coach at 17, did a natural bodybuilding show. And I was like obsessed with it. Right. And again, going through that process, like going through 6 months to a year of dieting and training for a show, like that really put me in a bad place afterwards, because I became food obsessed. Like for that entire time I was training and getting ready, like I was just obsessing with food. And then when the show was over, it's like, boom, I'm off to the races, binging every night, gained 30 pounds like in a month. So it was bad. But one thing I've realized over the last 20 years, I'm like, there is no there is no perfect scenario or perfect situation. You kind of have to give yourself a lot of grace while you're starting your journey, regardless if you only have 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds to lose, like, or 100 pounds to lose. You got to approach things with grace and just knowing, like, you've never been perfect at anything in your life, right? You've never had the perfect job or the perfect, building your business wasn't a perfect process, or, you and your spouse probably don't have the perfect relationship. And if you say you do, you're probably lying to yourself, right? Like, nothing in life is perfect, but yet when we decide to follow a fitness plan or a fitness approach, we like set the bar at perfection. Like, all right, I'm going to be perfect with my calories, perfect with my food, never going to cheat, hit my workouts. And the second we miss the mark, which you're going to miss the mark, you like kind of self-sabotage and say, oh man, I'm a failure. I suck. Like, why am I even bothering? And then you just go back to your old habits, where it's like, if you just stay consistent and expect to slip up, at least 20% of the time, all right, like it's the 80-20 rule. Be consistent 80% of the time. You're going to slip up 20% of the time. If you just stay consistent, like, you're going to be way ahead of the game, instead of doing this like all or nothing Monday diet mentality, where it's like, oh man, I messed up the weekend. Monday morning, I'll get back on track. I'm going to run 10 miles tomorrow. I'm going to cut my carbs. I'm going to weight train. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, you're friggin' starving and you're binging Thursday night, and the cycle repeats itself, right? So one thing I've tried to really like be diligent with over the last few years is just like getting rid of that all or nothing mentality, because it is so freaking dangerous. And like, it kind of puts you on a path to just staying stuck where you are. You're either extremely working out and extremely dieting hard, or you're binging, and then you're kind of just canceling each other out, right? You're not really getting any steps ahead. You're taking like 3 steps forward and then 3 steps back, and you just kind of repeat that for years and years and years, right? So I've just been, again, just trying to like look at life and look at things, whether it's my fitness or business or relationships, and just realize, like, hey, if I can make more good decisions and be a little bit better today, and just be a little bit more consistent, that's all I need to be successful and make progress. I don't have to be perfect and like, be crazy with anything. Like, extreme things never lead to, good things oftentimes, right? So just kind of taking life again, like, I'm very big on one day at a time. Like, I tell myself, I tell my clients, like, it's one day at a time. How do you lose 100 pounds? You lose 1 pound at a time, right? Like, you get one workout in at a time, one meal at a time, like one good day of nutrition at a time. That's all you could do, is just kind of look at what's ahead of you today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow, but let's just focus on today. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but
no, yeah. It was a fantastic answer. I think one thing I want to zero in on, you used the word dangerous. And I do think that is a fantastic word to use, and it's a strong word, but it's accurate, where you get into these very extreme things. And like a bodybuilding show is a perfect example of that, where there's nothing wrong with bodybuilding. It's a sport, but bodybuilding is not a sport of who's the healthiest. Like, that is absolutely not what it's a competition for. It's who looks the best on stage. And to look the best on stage, you have to do some unhealthy behaviors, which is like severely restricting food. And that also usually comes with severely restricting social life and a whole bunch of other things you got to cut out of your life to look the best you can for that, 5 minutes on stage. And this goes with all extreme things, right? There is danger in these, because sometimes they can be good to get you out of a rut. Some people need that, like, swift kick in the ass to really get out of the thing that they're in. But doing that extreme way of dieting, of fat loss, of life change overall is really not the long way to go about it. But sometimes you kind of have to, you got to fall on your face to learn that lesson yourself. Like, you and I are saying this right now, and many others have said it many, many times, and we've said it many times, and we'll continue to say this same message, yet it's still going to happen. And so I think it's one of these things where it's like, you got to kind of learn this for yourself. And sometimes you need to go to that place and like, and develop, some strategies to really shock yourself into changing your life. And then you're going to fall flat on your face, and then you're going to come, fall somewhere in the middle. But that's a long, difficult journey to learn on your own. And like, in your own story, losing over 100 pounds, like, there were many times where you probably went from this like super on the path, like fitness, and then fell right off back to, and then that probably happened a few times before you fell into this place where you are now, which is like this beautiful place in the middle of still being in shape and just doing more good things than bad things over time. Yeah.
I said the other night, I actually posted this on my Facebook page, and the caption started with, don't miss out on 98% of your life just so you could weigh 2% less. Right. And unfortunately, like, a lot of people, they become so obsessive with losing weight or getting in shape. And that stress and anxiety associated with wanting this result so badly, like often leads to just either staying stagnant or self-sabotaging down the road, right? So that's why, like, I think it's good for people to like enjoy yourself periodically. Like I love to give my clients like a treat meal every week. Like go enjoy yourself. Don't stress about it. Don't track it. Like get it out of your system, enjoy your life a little bit. And then the next day you're just back on track. You're not allowing that to turn into like an entire day of just binging or an entire weekend of just like going crazy, then starting Monday. Right. So again, it's like that all or nothing mentality, man, is so dangerous. And it's hard to break too, though. Like I'm an all or nothing person. Like in my life, I'm either freaking bang on with everything or I'm like off the rails. I'm either at the gym training hard on my diet or I'm on the couch, like Uber eating, pizza. Right. So like, however, I have tried to get better at that and like realize, okay, if I have some pizza tonight, like with my wife, so what? That doesn't mean I have to then go out to the grocery store and go get a pint, like an entire pint of ice cream and go binge that and then buy cookies and like allow one, little treat or slip up to turn into like an entire cascade of just bad decisions, right? Because the pizza's not going to hurt me or having a few cookies isn't going to hurt me. What's going to hurt me is like engorging myself to the point of being sick. And now I just destroyed the last like 4 days of, of progress that I did make, right? So now again, we kind of just canceled out all the good things and now we're kind of back to square one. And that's what a lot of people do. They just kind of, they make progress and they come back a little bit. So again, just giving, like, you got to give yourself grace on this journey, man. Like expect, like I tell people and I make it clear with my coaching clients, you are going to slip up. Expect it because it's going to happen. However, how you handle it after it happens is the most important part, not allowing it to like, get into a pity fest and just say, oh man, I suck. I'm going to fall, I'm just going to go eat my feelings the next 3 days. Like acknowledge it happened. It's not a big deal. Get back on track the next day. So
yeah, it's like I don't know what the other analogy of this, but it's like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of thing, but in different contexts. But it's like if you make a quote unquote mistake on your diet, that's fine. It happens. You do your thing, something happened, whatever. If you continue to make that mistake, it's no longer a mistake. Now it's a choice that you're making. And that's where the issues come up, right? I think another thing just to kind of transition into here is like this transition of identity that has to happen with becoming someone who is an overweight person who doesn't like to exercise, who doesn't enjoy living a healthy life, to identifying as someone who is a healthy weight person who likes to exercise and likes to eat healthy foods and also enjoys, treat foods and stuff like that. But using the term treat meal instead of cheat meal is, I think, one of those big things, because just by calling it something different, it kind of changes something in our brain where by a treats are okay. You give your dogs treats all the time. It doesn't mean you give them the equivalent of like, it doesn't mean you don't feed them regular dog food or, regular food. You just give them a treat once and then they eat their regular meal. And the same as us. You have your treat meal and then you're just right back on track rather than turning that cheat, which now feels like, you've done something wrong, that there's something wrong with you, that there's something wrong with the plan, that things are not working. And if it's not working, well then fuck it. I'll just blow this whole thing up and now there's no point in even trying. So I think changing that identity, or just the words that we're using, even the stories that we tell ourselves with the words that we use, calling it a treat instead of a cheat, is a really powerful shift that helps a lot of people. Because again, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna mess up, and that's okay. You just got to get back on the horse and keep going and include it as part of what you're doing, rather than expecting it to never show up ever.
Yep, agree. Yeah, I mean, listen. One phrase I live by is consistency compounds, right? So you can consistently make bad decisions and consistently keep slipping up, and it's going to compound and get you a certain result. You can consistently make good decisions, and those results are going to compound and get you a certain result, right? So consistency compounds. Regardless of what decisions you decide to make, that's up to you. Like you have to make more good decisions than bad decisions, and those decisions will compound and get you ultimately the results that you either want or don't want, right? So that's really what it comes down to.
Something that I was thinking about this last week, and I meant to actually ask you about it, but then we're going to do this podcast anyway, so I figured this was a good time to talk about it. Now, this may go nowhere, and it may take us the rest of the podcast. So let's see. But do you know much about the weight loss injections, the semaglutide, the tirzepatide, this Ozempic, and all this stuff? So you're familiar with them?
Yeah. Yep. I've actually taken them before. So
Okay.
I'm very familiar. I have some clients that take them. I have some family members that take it. I've done a lot of research on it. So yeah.
Okay, even better then, because what I was gonna get at, because I know that the medications have, they've boomed in the past year or so, just in their marketability, and I'm not sure exactly why that's happened, but whatever. But they're not new medications; they've been around for years and years and years. What I was going to ask you was, in that time when you were 100 plus pounds overweight, had this been something presented to you, what would your mindset have been around using that? Because some people view it as cheating, which I think is silly. I don't know who you're cheating. And some people view it as like, oh, this is the be all end all. If I just take this shot, then I don't have to do anything. So what was what was the circumstances around you taking it, and how did that go? If you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, dude, I'm an open book with my entire family. I'm a recovering food addict. I say it openly. I have struggled with food addiction, binge eating, and eating disorder. I'm writing my second book on binge eating and eating disorder now. So trust me, like, I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff. I actually made a post probably a few months ago on my Facebook page, like a long form video talking about semaglutide, Ozempic, Trulicity. No, not Trulicity. Mounjaro. There's a few like brand names out there.
Mounjaro is the different medication. It is tirzepatide, but
tirzepatide's another one. But they all use the same mechanism to really get people in shape, right? Like, these medications slow gastric emptying, which simply means like when you eat, the food stays in your stomach longer and you stay fuller and you really don't want to eat. So let me first, I guess, respond to your question is like, what made me try it a few years ago, right? So, again, some of you don't know this if it's your first time listening to me and don't know my story, but I really struggled with like binge eating for a long, long time, right? And a lot of that had to do with like doing the bodybuilding thing, like greatly restricting myself. And then on the weekend, I would go crazy and just engorge myself, right? That's not very healthy, and it could cause like a lot of internal damage as well, which a lot of people don't think about. So about 4 years ago, I had a binge eating episode, if you want to call it that, right? Came home, binged on peanut butter. And I woke up at 4 a.m. and had this like crazy pain in my abdomen. I literally felt like I was dying. It was a pain I never felt before. Drove myself to the ER around like 4:35 in the morning. They run a bunch of tests. They do an ultrasound of my abdomen, and they're like, oh man, your gallbladder is like, you're ready to like rupture. Like, we got to get you to surgery. So they sent for an ambulance because they couldn't do the surgery at that place. They had to send me to another hospital. So they put me in an ambulance, sent me to another hospital, and they removed my gallbladder, hours from then, right? And that was all because I binge ate, right? So like, again, when it comes to binging and things like that, it's something that I've really struggled with over the years. So when I heard about the weight loss medication, I was like, man, like, this sounds like almost too good to be true. If I could take, it's a once a week injection, right? And it kills your cravings, kills your appetite. Like, you don't want to eat. I'm like, if I could just kind of change my relationship with food, like, this would greatly, greatly help me. Right. And I think a lot of people are surprised to hear me talk about this, but I think things like that can be helpful for a lot of people. Right. Now, long term, probably not. But if someone is struggling with just like having discipline, or struggling with, binging or having an eating disorder like that, where they feel like they have no control over like just saying no to foods and controlling their cravings, I think it can be a help, right? And I've had this conversation with some clients where they told me they met with their doctors and they're thinking about doing it. And I'll actually tell them, listen, you know what? Like, if you feel comfortable with it, I think it might be a tool that can help you over the next 3 to 6 months to just kind of control your relationship with food, right? Because oftentimes, like, what happened with me after I got off the medication, I realized that like I actually held on to a lot of like the long-term benefits of like, just not like, no longer like feeling like I had no control if there was a cookie in front of me. Like, I felt like I had more control. Right. So I do feel like the medication, not only does it help you while you're on it, but it also can kind of like establish longer term benefits of how you view food. And it really can help change your relationship with food. Right. The thing that pisses me off though about the medication, because I actually got kicked out of a Facebook group that was a semaglutide Facebook group because I was trying to learn about it. Right. And I actually made a post like, hey guys, just, I'm a full-time fitness coach. So, I'm not promoting myself in here. Like, I'm just kind of giving you some information that might be helpful to you. You still have to like develop healthy lifestyles. You can't just take the shot and go eat the same shit you've been eating. Because I see a lot of people like they'd be in the Facebook group and they'd be like, oh, I only had 2 bites of my McDonald's hamburger. Like, it's working. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you're taking this medication for a result, but you're still following the same shitty eating habits, right? So I'm like, I tell people if you're going to take it, use it as a tool in your toolkit to like help you establish a healthy relationship with food. Start working out, right? Like start getting your butt to the gym 4 days a week, or start getting your steps in and start like eating healthier. Like that's how the medication can really help you. Instead of just taking it, eating the same shit, but less of it, like then your body composition is actually going to get worse because now you're losing fat, but you're losing muscle tissue and losing bone density. And, I think Peter Attia said this, who's someone that I greatly respect in the field. He's like, what we're seeing with people that go on Ozempic, semaglutide, and Mounjaro is like, they're getting smaller, but they're getting fatter, right? Meaning that they're losing a lot of overall mass, but included with that mass is like losing muscle tissue, which is a horrible thing for metabolic function, right? If you lose muscle mass, your metabolism is going to be shot and you're not going to like have a healthy functioning metabolism, right? So what are you really accomplishing if you lose weight? So my decision to take the medication years ago was just because I wanted to control my binge eating, which I felt like it really, really helped. But I was living a healthy lifestyle while I was taking it. I wasn't using the medication as like a crutch to go eat ice cream, but just eat less ice cream. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you just have to be very smart with it. I mean, again, I'm not against it whatsoever. I think if people have the opportunity to take it, but they do it along with making a healthy decision and, hiring a coach too, or hiring someone like a trainer or someone that's actually going to help them develop the healthy habits while they're on it, I think it could be highly beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best. I mean, and if anyone who watches sports or TV at all, you know that these commercials are literally every commercial. It's either that or sports betting commercials right now. But your spiel there is the best kind of description and advertisement, if you will, for these medications, where it's like, yes, they work, they are effective, but they only work because they help you to eat less. And so if not coupled with an actual lifestyle change, then you are sentenced to take this medication for forever. And that may be healthy and maybe not. Neither you or I are doctors or researchers, we have no idea. I think we're both kind of on the side of like, probably rather not take a medication forever if you don't have to. Yeah. And if you can use it to like exactly what you did, whereas it's just that shift in your mindset. It helps remove that feeling of needing to binge, and helps kind of control and sort of bring you back to a little bit more of a moderate lifestyle or relationship with food. Then that's great. But you've got to, you've still got to train. You still got to try and eat healthy, because there are other health benefits of food other than just their calories. Otherwise, we wouldn't have vegetables at all. If we would just all eat McDonald's, it would be great. Yeah. But having that ability to actually get off of them, and you didn't have to take it for 10, 15, 30 years, right? It gave you that jump start. You took it, you ran with it, you changed your lifestyle, you changed your psychology and your mentality around these things, and now you don't need it anymore, and you won't need to go back to it. So I think that's huge, and I think a lot of people are worried about like, oh, but I need to take this forever, and you do, unless you change something about how you're actually living your life.
Yeah, I think I kind of correlate it to like people that get sleeve surgery or get bariatric surgery. It's really the same thing, right? And I've worked with a lot of bariatric clients over the years where they get the sleeve surgery. Now their stomach has shrunken, so they can only eat like 1,000 calories a day, if that, right? So of course you're going to lose 100 pounds in like 6 months, right? Crazy amounts of weight loss.
Yeah.
But the problem is that, again, like, you're pretty much killing your metabolism because you're not able to eat that much. Your body's not able to absorb a lot of the nutrients and foods you're eating. And it's really the same thing with like, the Ozempic shots too, right? One thing I hated about the shot was that I really struggled to get protein in because I was never hungry, right? So like a lot of times I had to force feed protein. And, these medications aren't without side effects too, right? Like we got to be open and honest about that. Like a lot of times, especially in the beginning, like, I felt kind of nauseous periodically. My training wasn't as optimal because, it was like I would push myself really hard one set, and then all of a sudden I'd have like a wave of nausea. And I work out in the morning, right? So I find that like oftentimes in the morning, it's kind of like a morning nausea that you experience with the medication. Some people do, some people don't. So, again, it's like not everything is just positive either, right? Like you have to weigh out the pros and cons with it. For me, there was a net benefit of it, but again, I still wasn't perfect. Like, I think it helped me maybe instead of binging 3 times a week, it helped me binge like once a week. And that binge wasn't even as bad as like it normally would be. Right. So again, the paradox of perfection, like just, staying more consistent with things, not, being perfect, but just kind of being more consistent 80% of the time. Like that was the benefit for me. So yeah.
Yeah, you gotta look at the big picture. I think that thing that Peter Attia posted, I think it was taken a little bit out of context from some analyses that I've seen, and I didn't read the whole study and whatever, but it's like, if you are just losing weight and you're just slashing your calories and not training and not eating protein, which I think is a problem with this, because you're just so not hungry, and so it's like when you are hungry, you're still not gonna, like, that chicken breast is not the most appetizing looking thing when you're starving, right? It's something else. I mean, it's a little bit more, flavorful, junky, whatever, especially when that's your current psychology, right? It doesn't shift your psychology. It can if you direct it in that way, but it doesn't default do that. And then you end up in this kind of like skinny fat scenario, which is like still by all means healthier than being like morbidly obese, of course, but it's still not like the ideal body that people want. And the only way to get rid of that skinny fat look or feeling is by training and building muscle mass. And so that's where building comes in. And it would be, I would imagine it would be incredibly difficult to build muscle while taking these medications, even if you get down to a very low or relatively low body weight. I think it just sounds like it would be super hard. And so it may end up like, I mean, I got to think that even if everyone who took it became what we'd call skinny fat, they're still going to have better health outcomes than their current state. So it's probably still a net positive, but not as positive as it could be, where just with a little bit of training, you're going to maintain that muscle mass and then actually, work into the body that you're looking for. Right. And I think just to, continue to expand upon the paradox of perfection is zooming out a little bit. You're not going to be perfect every day, and that's okay. We've well established that by now. But if you zoom out and look at the chart, if you will, of how many days you've been perfect or how many days you've been really good, and you look at it from a sort of a bird's eye view, you'll see that, hey, like, I've been really, really good over this time. Maybe I wasn't so good yesterday, but like for the past 6 months, 6 years, I've been really, really good. And so I think that's where that paradox comes in, right? It's where we want to be perfect, but we can't actually be perfect. So what are we really striving for? And that's where that 80-20 kind of comes in.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Yeah, I mean, just like one more thing about the medication. Again, it's not. First of all, for most people, well, I don't know if you saw this, but like Weight Watchers now, I think they just bought a company or a pharmacy, or they established some type of relationship with one of these companies that do the weight loss injections, right? Okay. So now it's like, for those that don't know, like, these weight loss injections started off as diabetes medications, right? And then they realized, oh, everyone's losing weight that's taking this. Like, maybe there's some weight loss applications that's happening, which of course then they marketed it as a weight loss drug, right? So even like a lot of these big fitness companies like Weight Watchers, now they're developing partnerships with these companies that are administering, the injections. So we'll see how things kind of play out with that in the future. Like I said, I know a lot of people that have started it and they just didn't like how they felt on it, because it, like, there's constipation or diarrhea or nausea. I mean, anytime you're messing with the gastric process, like, there's going to be some type of, side effects there. Right. So
yeah, nothing comes without consequence. I think one last thing, something that I saw was that the tirzepatide, which is the newer form of the semaglutide, and it's, in my understanding, is that it's like a little bit stronger, but it's showing more effects in this, like, reducing this binge eating kind of thing, or this food addiction type of thing. And so it's actually, I believe, and don't quote me on this, whatever, but I believe it's going through the process of getting FDA approval for alcohol addiction or alcohol abuse as well, for that same purpose, where people are finding that they just don't feel like they want to drink, or they only want to have 1 beer instead of 10 beers, or they only want to have, whatever. And so it has these wide ranging effects, and they're super interesting. But nothing is like, there's still no magic pill, right? They may be marketed as like the magic pill, but like, if you just take this shot and do nothing, that's not it. So I think like, agreeing with you that it's a great tool. Maybe not great for everyone, great for some, not great for others, but there's no way you're going to get around not changing your lifestyle and just like changing your diet and your behavior and your relationships and all the things. They all matter and they always will. And like, as much as our lives would be easier if we could just prescribe people a pill and say like, hey, take this and you'll just be jacked and shredded and tanned. That ain't it. Just not the way it's going to go.
I think too, though, like people have to kind of take responsibility and like be self-reflective on why they have the relationship with food they do, or why they keep falling short, or why they keep binging, right? Like whenever I've binged, like I try to look back and be like, okay, why did I binge on, that Friday night, right? Like why? I was bored. I was home. I had nothing to do. I thought, oh man, like some cereal and cookies would sound great right now. And I just ate out of boredom, right? Or maybe I had a stressful day and I binge ate then, right? Or if your environment is, that which has, like you have cookies in the pantry and chips and all the sweet foods readily accessible and available, then it doesn't matter how disciplined you are, like the temptation will slowly draw you in, right? So a lot of times too, like you have to be kind of self-reflective and just kind of look at your life and look at your habits and say, okay, why do I keep falling short? Or why do I keep giving into temptation? Or why do I keep, falling off track? A lot of things, again, medication aside, like is just lifestyle based. What, like, is your lifestyle either producing a healthy life and healthy results, or is it kind of holding you back and you're kind of like self-inflicting these things upon yourself because you're keeping the temptation there, right? Like if you're an alcoholic, you're not going to keep alcohol in your house. If you're a recovering alcoholic, you're not going to keep alcohol in your house. If you're a recovering heroin addict, you're not going to, like keep it in the friggin' pantry, right? Like, so there's certain things where like I treat food addiction the same way. I'm very big on establishing that food addiction is just as real as alcohol addiction and drug addiction. I think food addiction is even stronger, right? And I know this is going to be a very controversial statement, but I'm just speaking from experience. Like food and sugar is the most addictive thing out there, right? Like they've done studies. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine, right? So, just knowing that and knowing that a lot of these companies and, that make all the snacks and foods, like they're scientifically made to just have you wanting more and more and more of it, right? So if you know that about yourself, and I know that about myself, like you could ask my wife, Christina, like she doesn't keep certain foods in the house because I'll eat it. Right? We don't keep peanut butter in the house or almond butter in the house, or, she doesn't buy certain things because she knows I have a problem with food. And she knows that even though I'm this like disciplined guy and I'm a health coach and I'm a fitness guy, like she knows in a moment of weakness, I'll be stuffing my face, so, yeah. But I know that. So I plan for it and I established certain boundaries in my life to where I could set myself up for success and not have those temptations there. Right. So yeah. If like a full-time health and fitness coach is still susceptible to falling short, then why do people think that, they have the discipline or the power to avoid it? It's like, we're all human, dude. I don't care who you are. I don't care how old you are. If you're 100 pounds overweight or if you're in a natural bodybuilder with 3% body fat, like we all love cupcakes, right? We all love like the good foods and we're all susceptible to eating it. So if you know that about yourself, then you have to establish a lifestyle and a situation that doesn't allow you to just easily slip up and fall short, right? So that's the biggest part of it, like knowing that about yourself and then planning for it.
Yeah, some people might hear that and think about it's a restrictive lifestyle and you're not allowing yourself to enjoy things, but I don't think that that's a correct analysis of what you're saying, because you are allowing yourself to enjoy those things just within reason. Because like you said, that in a moment of weakness, and we're all going to have moments of weakness, a shitty day, someone cuts you off in traffic, like any number of things that can happen that could just like piss you off, and it's just like straight into the cookie jar or whatever your thing is, right? I also don't think that it's like an overstatement by you to say that food addiction is as strong or stronger than alcohol and drugs, just based on the fact that we still need food. So you don't need alcohol and you don't need heroin to live, but you do need food. And so now you've got to make a choice between a healthy food and between binging food. So you still need some of it, right? It would be way harder. Imagine if we needed alcohol. There would be way more people who would be overdoing it, because the line between like just enough and too much is a pretty fine line, and it's really hard to walk that line sometimes. So we still need food. We need it, multiple times a day and whatever, and every single day. And so crossing that line is actually pretty easy. Now, the only other side of it is like binge eating one time is not going to put you in the hospital or going to kill you. Like, it's a whole, workup over many, many years, and it manifests as type 2 diabetes and other lifestyle related diseases and illnesses. And so you might not realize that was the case, whereas like, overdosing on drugs can kill you one time. And obviously that's horrible and sad, but that's just the reality of the situation. We need food. And so it's hard to like restrict yourself on something that you need. But I think setting up these boundaries is really good. And that's also my favorite way of doing it, is like, look, if you have a thing with cookies and you just like, you can't have just one, or if they're there, you're going to like eat the whole box at night. Like, you got to just get them out of the house. It's the only way. You can play the discipline game as long as you want, but eventually you're going to lose. And that's just the reality of the situation. It sucks, but it is what it is. So you got to make that choice. Look at yourself hard in the mirror and say, hey, I cannot handle this right now. I'm working on it. I'm doing X, Y, Z to work on this. But for the time being, no cookies in the house. And that's that.
Yeah. I think again, just kind of going back into like looking at your own lifestyle and like looking at patterns that you've kind of fallen into. One thing I realized, and I'm writing an entire chapter about this in my new book, which goes into food addiction and binge eating, is like I realized that the times that I binged, 9 out of 10 times, it was on a day that I didn't work out, right? So I hadn't gone to the gym that morning. I hadn't worked out. And for those of you that work out, which I'm assuming a lot of people watching this do, because it's a fitness podcast, most people know, when you work out, after a workout, you feel good, right? Like you release endorphins, you get a dopamine hit, you feel like you accomplished something. So what I realized, like when I binge eat, it's because I'm looking for dopamine, right? It's like a drug addict looking for that hit. When I binge eat, it's because I'm either feeling crappy about myself, or I'm having, stress or whatever it is, and I just want to feel good, right? So I go binge eat, I feel good for a second, then I feel like crappy afterwards because I feel guilty now. But that's kind of what I established, was like the times I binge often is when I'm not working out. So the chapter in my book that I write about, it's called Dictate Your Dopamine, right? So like when I wake up and go train first thing in the morning, like I'm getting that dopamine hit to where I don't feel like I need it later on in the day. And I don't feel like I need it, elsewhere, right? With food or like getting that quick dopamine fix, because I already got it by working out first thing in the morning, right? So that's something that I think a lot of people could really benefit from too, is like, when you start exercising, and this sounds so like cliche, it's like, oh, you want to feel better, go exercise. The truth of the matter is, like for depression, anxiety, like a lot of things that people struggle with, like working out and just getting in a more, routine of exercise, like it helps so many things. It puts you in the right mind frame. You feel accomplished. You feel, like you accomplished something, and like now you could take on the day in a much more effective way. Right. So again, knowing that about myself, I'm like, okay, if I work out today, even though I don't want to work out, I'm going to go work out, because I know that I'm going to be a lot more able-bodied to control my cravings or, urges to binge later on if I get my workout in and I get my dopamine right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, it just kind of goes back to like looking at patterns and realizing, okay, where have I been more susceptible to slipping up and falling off track? And then once you identify it, you can kind of put safeguards in place to fix it. You're never going to be perfect. I still binge from time to time, dude. I will never be perfect. I will always love food. Like you said, we have to eat to survive. And there's always this relationship where it's like, I just want a little bit more rice with my chicken, or I just want a little bit more of this or that, right? It's always going to be there, but just making more good decisions and being consistent 80% of the time, like, is going to put you way ahead of the game in the long term.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, consistency compounds, right?
Yep.
Good behaviors breed more good behaviors. So if you start your day off, you roll out of bed and the first thing you do is, light up a cigarette and scroll on Instagram and like, whatever, do some nonsense, like, then you're more likely to continue to do less healthy behaviors later in the day versus you wake up in the morning, you have a glass of water, you go to the gym, you go for a walk, you spend some time with your family or whatever. Like, you're just doing healthier behaviors, and then therefore you're going to be more likely to continue those behaviors throughout the day. This is one thing, and I'm not sure how you do this with your clients, but like I'm a big advocate for like when you're going to have your treat meals, like it's got to be, and it depends on the person for sure, but like I try and make it so that it's always dinner time or end of the day. Because if you do that at breakfast and you go out for a brunch or something like that, it's very hard to like, go out and French toast and waffles and like syrup and like and all this stuff at, 10 a.m. and then just like, later for lunch, you're just going to have like your chicken and broccoli. Like, it's very hard to do that, right? It's way easier. Like if you start the day off on like an unhealthy foot, you're going to continue that. And so again, it just comes back to, what I love that you said is just this awareness. You got to really take a hard look at what you're doing, identify your behaviors, and then figure out where you can make positive changes. Because again, consistency compounds, and it's one of the best statements ever and one of the most true statements ever.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's so much. The individualization of this is the most difficult part. So like you and I are here and we're discussing how, you have to look at yourself and whatever, but we're talking on a podcast. And so we're speaking to, lots of people at the same time. So we can't possibly identify what someone's thing is that they need to change. We can give all these tips and say like, yeah, take the cookies out of the house and do this, that, and the other thing and whatever. But at the end of the day, like personal responsibility is number one, and that's the only thing that is going to get you out of this. Like only you can save yourself. There's medications and hire coaches and whatever, but like with your clients, like you're not there holding their hand. Like you give them all the tools and they've got to go and execute on their own, right? And this is the most challenging part to overcome with this. And I think where I want to take this is the accountability piece. And like, were there people who were around you or a coach that you hired or just like maybe a therapist or someone who was like kind of like in your corner that you could lean on to pull you out of those places when you were slipping up a little bit, and how important that is to this whole journey and transforming your identity? Yeah.
So first off, to kind of caveat what you said earlier, like, yes, everyone is so different, right? I have some people that might reach out to me, maybe they're 20 pounds overweight or 50 pounds overweight, and they really don't struggle with like binge eating or food addiction, but they just eat what they want. They don't exercise. So the weight naturally just piles on over the years, and now they want to get it off, right? So I put them on a plan. I give them the accountability. We do check-ins, they start training and they lose the 50 pounds and they're rock solid, right? Like they reach out to me 3 years later. I just had one of my clients, Sergio. He's actually based in Toronto. I started working with him 3 years ago. The guy lost, like 60 pounds, has abs now at 45 years old, and he looks incredible. But he never really struggled with like food addiction or binge eating. He just needed some guidance and help to like establish a more healthy lifestyle. I have some clients, on the other hand, where it's more of a psychological thing. Like food is a crutch, a lot like myself, right? To where it's like, if I'm having a bad day or, like I'm feeling stressed or, things like that, like I do want to go binge eat, right? So, things are kind of very, very like individualized. And, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My brother and sisters, like my brother just stays in shape all the time. He's never struggled with food. He could eat what he wants. He eats pizza. He eats donuts. And the guy stays like shredded all the time, right? Me, I'm like, just doesn't work that way. Like, I wish, but yes, everyone is so different. So realizing that is such an important, part of it. What was the second part of your question?
I think I was just talking about like accountability. I don't exactly remember, but I think a place to take this even more recently was like you before the wedding, like you were showing like losing weight and whatnot like publicly. Mm-hmm. Like, was that a form of something that was really good for you? Was that difficult for you to do publicly? Of course, most people are not don't have thousands of followers and stuff on social media. Most people are just more or less private. But like calling it out publicly, calling your shot, is that something that would you have done that if you weren't a public figure? Yeah.
So where I'm at now, like over the last year, it's like for me, getting out of shape is like gaining 10 or 15 pounds, right? Which like for most people, they see me, I'm 6'2". I'm usually around 205 pounds. If I go through the holidays and just have like a screw it mentality, I might get up to 215, right? But I could drop the weight pretty quickly. So like getting ready for my wedding, I was like, you know what? I want to go from like looking, to me, was kind of like fluffy, and just go from that to like being, single digit body fat, right? Like 10% body fat. So it was actually fun, like, because I like showing people what it looks like. And again, not doing anything extreme, but just, kind of buttoning up the nutrition a little bit. And just kind of showing people the natural progression of just getting a little bit leaner, right? But for me, listen, like I've talked to eating therapists before, right? Like 3 years ago, I actually sought out I didn't even know there were like psychologists for like binge eating. Right. And it was actually a night after I binge ate really bad. My wife, my now wife, then girlfriend, she was like, dude, I'm really worried about you. Like, I think you have a problem, right? Because before we started dating, I would just like, when I binged, I was by myself. No one really saw it. Right. But like, she would go in the pantry in the morning and be like, where the hell is all my food? I'm like, oh shit. Like, I'm sorry, babe. I binge ate all of it, you know? And she was like, generally, like, she wouldn't be mad, but she was like, dude, like, this is bad. Like, I've never seen someone eat that much food all at once. Right. So I jumped on Google, found an eating therapist, and I was seeing her. I saw her probably like once a week for like 4 weeks. Right. And we would sit there and like, kind of like, talk about my childhood and try to identify like what caused it. And honestly, the truth is like, I had a great childhood, no abuse, you know, like none of the things that people kind of think about, like why I'm fixing or like why I have this habit of binging. Right. So she kind of got me to think through things, but it wasn't anything like monumental. Right. But over the years, I found like when I have a coach or someone there to keep me accountable, like it just keeps me on track. Right. Like, if I have to send you my weight, Daniel, like every Monday morning and send you my photos and, you know, have that accountability in place, like I'm probably not going to go pig out this weekend because I don't want to get a message from you on Monday morning where you're like, dude, why is your weight up a pound, you know, this week? Or why didn't you lose any weight this week? Or, you know, like, why is your weight up 5 pounds? Which for me was typical because when I binge all weekend, like my weight could easily go 5 or 7 pounds higher, right? Like, I don't want to have that conversation with my coach or, you know, with an accountability partner because it's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
So even myself, like even till today, I'm a full-time coach and I still have a coach that I work with and he's not a friend. Like I actually pay him and invest into him because, you know, I'm a big believer, like when you have skin in the game and you're paying for something, like you're a lot more likely to follow it, you know, and when I have like friends that are other fitness coaches and I have had them do it in the past, like I just don't take it that serious because I'm like, oh, well, it's free. So like if I mess up, like who cares, right? But if I find someone that I don't have an existing relationship with and I respect them a lot and I'm paying them good money, like I'm going to do what they tell me and I'm going to stay on track and I'm not going to want to make myself look like an ass or, you know, go have like a shitty weekend where I just binge, right? So accountability is critical. And for even like today, like most people I work with, they've never had a coach before. They might have had personal trainers, but it's very different from having like an accountability coach there to like go over things with them and, you know, make sure they're following things and do their check-in on a weekly basis. So I think accountability, if someone has never had it, it will be the one thing that will change your entire life. Like it's the most important thing someone could have in their life is accountability. I mean, business, fitness, like there's a lot of big time business guys that have mentors and business coaches that coach them to grow their business, right? There's relationship coaches that help people develop better relationships, right? Fitness is one of those things where it's like, it's the same thing. If you want to get a certain result, find someone that's been there, done that, has people that they've helped before and can establish that and give you accountability to work within. And you'll be way ahead of the game.
Yeah, there's so many crossovers between fitness and business. It's actually remarkable because it is such a long game and there's so many ups and downs and like in all the things. And most of the stuff that works well is the simple stuff, just, you know, done repeatedly and aggressively over a long period of time versus like I'll get you to a 7-figure business in the next 3 months. Like, all right, like, probably not, you know, same as like, I'll help you lose 57 pounds in the next 3 weeks. Like maybe, but probably not, you know? Yeah. I think that's a super important thing though to highlight about the accountability and with friends and family. I think it's important to have these people on your team and, you know, like you're saying, you know, not having food in the house and stuff like that. And, you know, wife and parents and siblings and whoever supporting you and all that stuff. Like it's important, but it's way easier to like blow off a family member or a coach or a friend than it is to blow off like a coach. And although, you know, there's this like coach client friendship that develops, and that's certainly important, it's a lot different to like say, hey, I didn't do it this week. I just kind of fucked off and did my own thing. And like, you're not going to want to do that. But to your buddy or to your girlfriend or to your husband or whoever, it's like, it's a lot easier to just like, no, I didn't do it this week. Don't worry about it. So of course, like, you know, Steven, you and I are biased at this. Like, this is our job, our business is coaching people. But like, this is one of the things that we see routinely. And that's why people have tried diets, like very rarely. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong for you, but like for me, it's very rarely does someone ever come to me and they're like, oh, I've never tried any type of diet before. I've never ever exercised at all or thought about this ever. It's like, this is not, they just found me somehow and they've never considered this ever in their life. Like they've tried some stuff before, or at least dabbled in it or thought about it or whatever. And so hiring someone who's external to them, external to their life, not with them, is a way different feeling of accountability than, just reporting into their buddy who they're supposed to be, excuse me, supposed to be meeting at the gym every Tuesday at 3 p.m. or whatever it is. It's a very different thing. So getting some skin in the game and having someone to give you that actual honesty, be like, hey, you gotta clean this up. Like this is good. You're doing good, but you can do better. You got to clean this up. It's a hugely important piece.
Yeah, I mean, they've done studies on this. Like, I think the latest study I saw was like those who have an accountability partner, regardless if it's like fitness or, like any area in their life, like they're like 93% more likely to succeed. Like 93%, dude, that's not like 50%. That's 93%, which is like insane, right? And to make it more like correlated to fitness though, it's like, listen, I tell people in all reality, you should never have to hire a fitness coach, right? You have YouTube, you have Google, like you literally have every single diet ever created, every workout plan ever created, going back to Arnold Schwarzenegger till today, like everything is out there, right? So, but one thing I found, like it's not an information problem, it's an implementation problem, right? Yeah. So a lot of people, like it's information overload, right? Oh, well, this guy says do keto, this guy says eat carbs, this guy says do weight training, this guy says go run, right? So people they just don't know what to follow, right? Whereas like guys like you and me, we've been doing this for a while. We have, clients we've worked with, like we know what works, we know it doesn't work. And, for 99% of the people we work with, like the same thing is going to work, right? Like being in some type of calorie deficit, getting enough protein, doing resistance training, like 3, 4, maybe 5 days a week at the most, right? Like you stay consistent with those things, you're going to get results, right? And unfortunately, accountability is not sexy to market, right? Yeah. Like what's sexy is like, take this pill, you'll lose 20 pounds, or do this, crazy workout, you'll lose 20 pounds, or do this crazy diet, you'll lose 20 pounds, right? But it's like, it's not sexy to tell someone, hey, Laura, like you have 50 pounds to lose. Okay. Well, it's probably going to be like a 6 to 8 month process. It's going to be pretty boring. You're going to be tracking your food. You're going to be, eating healthy foods. You're going to be working out consistently 4 days a week, getting your steps in, right? Like each day is going to look pretty similar to the day prior, right? Like it's going to be a mundane process, but what gets results is doing the mundane things consistently day after day. And that's not, again, it's not like a sexy thing to tell people because most people want results quick, right? So having that honest conversation. And, I think today though, people are kind of like waking up to the fact that like, they know there's a lot of bullshit on the internet and social media. And they're kind of waking up to the fact that like, okay, they're just being more realistic with themselves, understanding like, I didn't gain 50 pounds in 30 days. This happened over the last 2 years or 3 years or since COVID or like, like
since high school, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. Like who knows? Right. So it's like, why do you think you're going to embark on this journey and all of a sudden have abs within 30 days, right? So sometimes just having that conversation with people and putting it in perspective to where they're like, you know what? You're right, right? So that's why like, you have to give yourself grace and you have to just go into it looking at it as a lifestyle change, knowing that you're going to not be perfect. But again, making more good decisions than you do bad decisions and just staying consistent with the boring things, like that's what's going to get you to your goal.
Yeah. Like you said, I think before we started recording, like you and I would agree on probably like 99% of coaching advice and programming and nutrition and all this stuff. I'm sure there's some small stuff that we might differ on. I couldn't even name it, but whatever. There's probably some small stuff. Mm-hmm. And the same would go for any half decent coach out there, right? Because there's only a few things that work, and then there's just like a million different approaches to get at. Even the weight loss injections, they don't magically melt away fat. They, go through this complicated physiological process that helps you eat less food. That's what it's doing. Yeah. The same thing that works for any type of diet. It's like this complex, lifestyle process that helps you eat less food. It's all the same thing. There's only one way to go about it. There's only one thing that works, and then just like endless ways to go about it. So selling this lie and selling a dream, I think you're right, and I hope that you're right, that it's becoming old, and I think that there's enough people out there now who are spreading a good message and saying like, hey, this is going to take a long time, this is going to be difficult, here's what needs to be done, here's the real of what's what. it's starting to catch on, and I think the sleazy fitness, I'll make you lose 100 pounds in 6 days kind of thing is going the way of like the used car salesman. Like people see through that nonsense now, and I think they're getting to see through that as well, which is a really good thing. And this is where people are going to start really making real results. But there's a lot of people out there, so like if 100 million people start doing the right thing, and there's still 100 million other people who are doing the wrong thing, and we haven't even gone outside of America yet, then there's still a lot of people who are being misled. So one conversation at a time, and just one honest conversation at a time, I think is really the best way to go about this. And people like yourself and writing books and in other mediums, because people learn different ways, the same way people will lose fat in different setups and different diets. Like people learn different ways and process information different ways. So credit to you for writing the book. I know that it's a ton of work, and that's a long process for sure. But I think it's very, very important.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, listen, my story is like very different, having an eating disorder or admitting to it is like not something that's very popular, and it kind of puts me in a very vulnerable position because, admitting that is not, doesn't really put you in a position of strength, right? But what I found over the years, especially more recently, like over the last year, just being very vulnerable with my audience on social media and just sharing that, like a lot of people are like, hey, like, dude, me too. Like I also struggle with that, right? So more people out there struggle with actually binge eating is the most common eating disorder out of all the disorders, right? Bulimia, anorexia. And the thing with especially men is a lot of men don't admit it because, they're kind of like the big, strong bodybuilder guy where it's like if they binge eat, they don't really look at it as binge eating. They look at it as like, oh, eat, get big and bulk and grow, right? But it really is binge eating, right? Yeah. So, and I know you're like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you struggle with the binging side of things as badly as I do, right? So like here we have two different guys in the fitness world, but I have certain struggles that you might not, right? So I think it's fun that we can come together and just talk about the differences. And, like I said, there's a lot of different people out there, man. Like not everyone struggles with the same things, some people struggle with saying no to a cookie and food addiction and cravings and binging, and some people don't. Some people just need more routine and a more structured training plan and nutrition plan, and they'll be good to go. Yeah. So, yeah. I
think that radical honesty is super important. And that's one thing that I've been mindful of saying across my social media and everything as well. Is like, look, I don't struggle with some of these things. I know that people do struggle with these things, and they're totally legit and whatever. But like for me to sit here and lie about like, oh, I struggle to like go to the gym and be motivated and like get my steps, like that's a lie. I don't struggle to do that stuff. And I'm aware that I'm lucky, if you want to use that word, to like not struggle with that. There's obviously other stuff that I struggle with, but like getting to the gym and like eating healthy is like not something that I struggle with. And so like, and that's okay too, because some people are just like, hey, I this is not a struggle that I have. I don't have this thing, and that's fine. And then there are people who are like, hey, I really do struggle with this, but I need to know that you understand that this is a real thing. And I think it's important for me to convey that I understand that not everyone is like me. And I'm not the perfect epitome of health, 7% body fat Greek god statue. Like that's not me. But I can understand where there's lots of different people, and people are coming from different places. And I think that this shift lately in all of social media to this more honesty and this just more transparent approach, I think is really important and super helpful for a lot of people.
It's all fake, man. Everything people see on social media is like, I hate to say that, but it's like most of the guys we follow on social media, like, come on, man. We all use, certain lighting or certain, angles to make ourselves look bigger, and the girls with their butts, like, managing expectations is such a big part of this too. And that's a topic we haven't even covered, but like, just realizing the same people you follow that seem to have it all together and seem to look like they're in incredible shape constantly. I promise you, it's not the case. All right. Like
everyone's got their shit.
Yeah. Like I'm friends with a lot of these people, and they're all great people, but it's like people show you what they want you to see, and they don't show you what they don't want you to see. Right. No one posts their photos when they're feeling bloated or, like when they're not looking as good or lean or without a pump in the gym. So just realize, like, a lot of times we set the bar, again, I guess in summary, like we set the bar so high, right? We have this paradox of perfection that never, ever existed to begin with, but yet we set the bar so high. And then as soon as we miss the mark, we feel like a failure and we go back into our old habits, right? So get rid of that entire thought process of like, I have to be perfect, like I'm never going to fall off track again. Accept the fact that you will, expect it to happen, but just course correct very quickly. Like course correcting when you slip up is the most important thing you can do. Not allowing it to become an entire day or week or weekend of just like, going off the rails, but you messed up. Okay, cool. Course correct. Next day you're at the gym, you're back on your track, and you're ready to go.
Exactly. Well said, baby. Thanks for coming on here. I appreciate you. Any last message you want to give to anyone? Is there any like date that's roughly? I know the book is like a ways out, but do you have like a projected date at all?
We're looking at like early 2024. Okay. I also told you, I haven't mentioned this anywhere, so I guess your listeners will be the first people to hear it, but I will be doing a TED Talk early 2024. So we're working through that right now and just like putting the talk together. I'm not sure where it's going to be. Like they kind of give you a location. Like your talk has to be like in conjunction with like the topic of that night, right?
Interesting, yeah.
So I'll have to figure out where the talk is going to be. But I'm excited about that because TED is a huge platform. And I think it's helpful just to kind of share these ideas and, allow people to realize like, hey, this whole fitness thing is not something that's unattainable for people. Like you could start, you could be successful, you could do it. So I'll keep you posted when those things are on the horizon. But for right now, just realize perfection doesn't exist. That's all. Like stay consistent. Like just do what you can. Get your 4 workouts in per week. Get your steps in every day. Stay as consistent with you can as your nutrition. Like try to string as many good days along as you can. Like try to string 3, 4, 5 days along. And then if you slip up one day, all right, well, you took 3 steps forward. Now maybe you only took 1 step back, but you're still 2 steps ahead, right? Instead of taking 4 steps forward, you messed up. Now you mess up the next 3 days. Now you take 4 steps forward and you're 4 steps back, right? So just like string as many good days as you can together. If you fall off track on the 5th or 6th day, who cares? Just get back on track the next day and you'll be way ahead of the game down the road. So give yourself grace. And in the words of Justin Bieber, love yourself.
The all-intelligent Justin Bieber. Toronto boy, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Thanks, buddy. We will keep in touch on the book and the TED Talk and whatever. Maybe we'll do another podcast like ahead of those coming out and whatever. But that's a ways away, so we'll keep everyone updated on that stuff. At Stephen Campolo on all social media platforms. That's correct. Yeah, it's not something else.
Yep, Stephen with a PH. Campolo. Yep.
Stephen with a PH, the all exciting English language where we got to change up letters for no reason. Stephen Campolo, I will put the contacts in the show notes. Stephen, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you. Everybody, make sure you're following Stephen. Plug into everything that he's got going on and everything that's coming up. Give this podcast a share, a listen, a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify and all the places. Share it with the people in your life who you know will benefit from this. Give me a follow as well at Daniel Yoris everywhere. And that's it. Go outside, be a good person. We'll chat soon.